Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And here we are, Thursday, 9/21. We have Johnny Gunn's investigation live, along with News Lounge, Becky. We're going to go over the Sidney Powell case because it's such a big thing going on right now. And Becky's going to go ahead and put on this live court TV. And then
Okay,
we'll go ahead.
I'll go ahead and start this video and then we can talk off of that.
Over 3 days. And at the end of the day, though, as Shanley Pater pointed out, with their mannerisms in the courtroom,
This right here is
they just
what
didn't
gets
believe
me.
Sidney Powell was suffering from an acute mental
Pause that
breakdown
for
when
1
she
second.
murdered her mother in 2018.
Because going back to the beginning of this, when the body cam was being played and we heard all that friction from her, it was just all put on show.
Yes, definitely put on a show.
Because I have kids, I have daughters, and I know for a fact the arguments that we get into, they would never kill me. This girl planned everything once everything happened, especially listening to the body cam, which I wish we had that footage right now, but it wouldn't come in. So looking at this picture,
it's all broken up. So
with this picture right here, you can see she knows she's going away for a while, and she knows what she did. Go ahead and continue.
Start the hour by looking back. If you missed it, this is what happened when the verdict was read.
Verdict form number 1 as to count 1 reads, "We, the jury in this case, being duly impaneled, sworn, and affirmed, do hereby find the defendant Sidney Powell guilty of the offense of murder as charged in count 1. The form goes on to say, and we do so render our verdict upon the concurrence of 12 members of said jury."
Whenever something like this happens in a family, it affects the whole family. We have the dad, the grandmother, and also the brother who now has to live every day knowing that they have no mom. And the way that she killed the mom was such a brutal attack. Don't you agree, Becky?
Definitely. I mean, it was a cast iron skillet and a steak knife from the kitchen. That's brutal. I mean, she smashed her mother's head.
And the worst thing about it is the dean from the college was on the other line while the mom was in the bedroom trying to find out exactly what was going on of why the daughter was home from college. And the sad thing is all her friends, teachers, and everybody who has known of her said she was such a good person. She was playing soccer, joining all the athletic leagues, and then everything went downhill from there.
Right.
We know she was on medication, correct?
Not beforehand.
Okay. So let's continue on with that video and see where it goes.
Okay.
Each of us said jurors concurring in said verdict signs their name hereto this 20th day of September 2023. Each juror has signed in ink next to his or her name. Verdict form number 2 reads, "We, the jury in this case, being duly impaneled, sworn, and affirmed, do hereby find the defendant Sidney Powell guilty of the offense of murder as charged in count 2. And we do so render our verdict upon the concurrence of 12 members of said jury. Each of us said jurors concurring in said verdict signs their name hereto this 20th day of September 2023. Each juror has signed their name in ink next to their juror number." Verdict form number 3 reads, "We, the jury in this case, being duly impaneled, sworn, and..."
So that's her attorney coming in.
Yeah.
And I heard that the father, when he hired the attorney, he wanted the attorney to treat her like it was his own daughter. That's a hard thing to say.
Right, but that was like objected in court because he kept trying to interject that in, and it got denied by the judge. Sustained. No, they didn't want.
And her grandmother Betsy, the mom of her daughter who got murdered, she's took her in, had her there ever since she's been released and bailed out, and has been living on the farm for I don't know how long.
About 3 years now, because it happened in 2020.
So they know that she has a problem, everybody has to know, because there's no way that she just did this out of the spur of an argument. She's been holding this inside for a long time. There's a lot of evil inside her head, as people know, because there's so many people feeling sorry for her, which I don't understand.
Well, I don't know if there's a lot of people feeling sorry. I've kind of seen where people are like, she knew what she was doing. But I guess it's because she's young, and she hasn't gone up for sentencing yet, so we don't know what she's going to get.
That comes on the 28th.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a hard subject too. But for me, and I know her family has to get up there inside in a trial like this. Usually they're going up and asking for a harder sentence. I'm wondering what they're going to do.
Right, because that's like the family's impact statements that usually go forth. But since that's her family and they already have supported her so greatly, I don't think that they're going to really ask for a harsh punishment. I think they'll ask for leniency for her.
Yeah, I do too. I would too for my daughters too, no matter what happened. I mean, that's just the way
the father, built, yeah, I can understand that. And
I mean, Steve is suffering. I mean, the dad has got to be suffering.
Definitely. I don't think he expected to come home to that.
Coming home to see the daughter sitting on the curb, cuts on her hand, blood all over her, and in a panic rage, because going back to that first night, the way she brutally murdered her mom and then started planning to tell the cops that it was a break-in and somebody came in and it wasn't her who murdered her mom.
Right.
So she knew everything that was going down on the murder. So it wasn't an outrage of a panic and a losing your mind at that moment.
No, not at all.
Because she would have helped her mom. She would have called 911 and said, I hurt my mom. I need help. And then they would have got somebody there to help her. But now the jury's going to have to take that down. And when they sentence her, that this was an evil crime. She planned it out at the end.
Yeah, like she knew what she was doing.
So what else do we have?
Well, I think she knew what she was doing in that moment, and then she started making plans to cover it up. Like, I don't think she went in with the intent of this is how it's going to go down. I think it was like sporadic, and she just did what she did.
Because we got to remember, one of her friends testified also in court that Sydney would actually let her know that sometimes she has these dreams that really scare her.
Right.
And the dreams she didn't think is when she was sleeping. These were thoughts in her mind while she was up. And then she also came back and said that after Sydney would let her know about the stories that she had in her mind, she would be different for 3 days or 4 days afterwards, very quiet and shy.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of evil intentions in this girl's mind. And I do think that it's better to have her taken off the streets now. And I think she should get life in jail.
Well, I mean, I think at this point, yeah, she is a menace to society and that she doesn't need to be. I think she needs to have some kind of, redemption, and she needs to go and get help.
Yeah, I agree. So what else footage do we have to show? Everybody come on in and join in.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and we were talking about when that body cam footage. So I'm getting that footage where we have just her sitting on that
on the curb.
On the curb.
Yeah, she can win an Academy Award for that one. I'll tell you that. But I feel bad for her, and I hate to say that, but in the beginning, when you hear her voice, you can just hear the panic of rage in her voice. That she's just scared. She knows what she just did was the worst thing that could ever happen.
Right, but I'm talking about I have the images, not the audio.
Right, you have the images of that. Let's see.
Go ahead and pull up the image.
We have Johnny Gunn's investigation tonight, along with News Lounge with Becky. We'll be coming on every day for an hour, 7:00 at night. Mm-hmm. So everybody.
Here, I'm going to try to play the body cam. Just one moment.
Okay. And we'll try to get that footage for you there. We've just been having some kind of problem.
What happened? What's going on?
Let's see. What's up?
And that paused out right there. That's when she's sitting on the curb.
Well, this is when she's coming out of the house.
What's going on?
Hold on.
I mean, can you imagine what the cops are thinking? I mean, they walked into such a bloody mess. They don't know. You hear her voice. You can
Yeah,
just,
she's
it's like
panicked.
she's drowning underwater. It's like
She's definitely panicked.
yeah. And I feel bad for her because she's a young girl.
She told me to get out.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's just not working there.
it's
But
not. So let me get
once the cops come onto the scene, when you see the footage, I can just imagine what goes through their mind, not knowing who to believe. Did she do this? How did she do it?
Right.
Then they see the cuts on her hands, and you just know that this girl had to be involved. There was no break-in. So
Right.
it backfired hard on her.
It did. So I'm going to go ahead and just go and play the court cam here as they read the verdict.
Yep.
Affirmed to hereby find the defendant Sidney Powell guilty of the offense of felonious assault as charged in count 3. And it reads, and we do so render our verdict upon the concurrence of 12 members of said jury. Each of us said jurors concurring in said verdict signs their name hereto this 20th day of September 2023. Each juror has signed his or her name in ink next to their juror number. And finally, verdict form number 4 reads, we the jury in this case being duly impaneled, sworn, and affirmed do hereby find the defendant Sidney Powell guilty of the offense of tampering with evidence as charged in count 4.
Right.
Below that it says, and we do so render our verdict upon the concurrence
And if that was
of
my
12
daughter,
members of said jury.
I'd be breaking
Each
down.
of us said jurors concurring in said verdict signs their name hereto this 20th day of September 2023, and each juror has signed in ink next to their juror number.
Yeah.
And that was
So
the response from this jury. That was the reaction from.
Yeah, if that was my daughter, I just don't know. I would break down big time too, and I would plead for her to get the lightest sentence she can and just get as much help as I can for her. But she definitely needs help because she definitely has an evil mind to be able to do that to the one that was supposed to be her best friend. Soccer practice, her mom went to every soccer practice, every game. They were like best friends from what everybody spoke about. I mean, the teacher back in high school, Catherine Milligan, was her high school teacher since 2014 to 2018, didn't do anything but talk highly about her.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, she was definitely a good person, played soccer. She, any kind of activities they had after school, because it was a Catholic school she went to, a private Catholic school. They would do overnights and weekend outings. She would join even though she didn't even know how to ski. She'd go on a ski adventure.
Right.
Try to fit in and do things with other people. So she didn't have social anxiety, that's for sure.
No, she didn't. She was a part of a sorority, so there was no social anxiety that she.
And then going back to that, college. So what brought her to have such high grades, gets a scholarship, and then all of a sudden everything just starts coming down because on her scholarship she had to keep an EPA average of I don't know what
GPA. I don't know
GPA,
what her scholarship details were, but usually when you're on an academic scholarship, you're going to have good grades. So, and if you're flunking, you lose your academic scholarship, you lose your funding to go to school.
And then they all had GPS on her phones. Is the actual reason how they found out that she was actually on her way home when she wasn't supposed to be on her way home.
Right. They have
it's
an app called Life 360. So it would notify you too, not just GPS. It would notify you when a person was in certain locations. So her parents were notified when she went home.
Well, on the 28th, we're going to definitely find out what the sentencing is. And I'm pretty sure her grandmother and family and friends are going to come out and ask for a lighter sentence. I would imagine so.
Right.
I mean, wouldn't you?
With this case, for me, I don't know how I would react to this situation, but yeah, I mean, for your own child, I mean, but the thing about it is you have to think about other people as well. She's not stable enough to be amongst society. The jury made the right call.
No.
I believe they made the right call. And when the sentencings come, I'm sure that the judge is going to make the right decision on the sentence for everyone involved, not just Sydney and her family, but everyone.
They're going to
the
go
public as
by
well.
the evidence, what she did. If she just hit her mom with that skillet, stabbed her, and then she comes to and says, "Oh, what did I do?" and then called for help and not make up a story, this sentencing would be different. She probably would only get 15 years. But I really do think they're going to probably give her the 15 to life, and then maybe a possible parole.
I mean, there's always can't say always, but they might give her the possibility of parole. I don't see why they wouldn't, because she is very young.
Yeah.
So
And she was 20 years old when this
19
happened. 19 years
yeah,
old
she was
when
19
this happened.
when it happened.
Yeah, 19. Think about that. 19 years old. And now she's 23.
Yeah. So she's.
And in those years that this happened and she's been out there, she's not been in any trouble. She hasn't put herself out into the public eye at all, right? She's been out there hiding on the farm of her grandmother.
She's been doing what she's been required of her. So she has been following the rules. She has been taking her medicine. She has been showing up for her doctor's appointments and things like that. But just to give somebody a slap on the wrist for something like just because they're following the rules now, that could be all manipulation just to get through the process, just to be like, see, now let me off, and then go right back into some really bad behaviors and traits.
Well, now she has no way of doing that. She's going to get the help she needs. I'm sure they're going to treat her very well there.
Well, yeah, I'm sure she's going to get the help that she needs. Here, I'm going to go ahead and switch, and we're going to listen to the witness testimony to hearing Brenda Powell's murder. So this is the staff, the university staff member that actually heard the ruckus going on the phone.
Join in, everybody. We have Johnny Gunn's investigation, and we also have News Lounge with Becky. Let's go ahead and listen.
Tight in there, and the microphone will catch on your clothing. So if you'll just speak into.
Just speak into that mic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you.
Okay, great. I might move over to this other podium so I can see you, but I'll start here. And if you don't mind,
pause that for 1 minute.
State your name and spell your last name for the record.
Sure.
Now, this is the woman who was on the phone?
Right. It's the witness testimony to hearing Brenda Powell's murder.
Got it. Okay.
Michelle Gaffney, G as in Gary, A-F-F as in Frank, N-E-Y.
And Ms. Gaffney, if you don't mind, where are you employed?
At the University of Mount Union.
Okay, University of Mount Union. Where's that located?
Alliance, Ohio.
Alliance, Ohio?
Right.
And Ms. Gaffney, how long have you been with Mount Union?
I think this is 29 years.
29 years?
Wow.
If you don't mind, what is your current position with Mount Union?
Currently, I serve as the Associate Dean of Students.
Okay. Have you been in that position for all 29 years?
No.
Okay. You've held other titles there?
Correct.
What are some of those titles?
I was a resident director, assistant director of housing, director of residential life, assistant dean of students, and now currently associate dean of students.
Is it fair to say most of your career has been involved in student transition and student life at Mount Union?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Gaffney, what type of education or training did you go through in order to obtain your positions there at Mount Union?
So, following undergraduate school, I went to Michigan State University and got my master's in higher ed administration, and worked at Michigan State.
Pause this for a second.
While doing so.
Okay.
And not to break this up for a minute, but I wonder why he has to ask all those types of questions.
Just to get her credibility. Who is she? Why are we hearing
25 years at the university is credibility enough, I thought. But anyway. Okay, so this was the one that was actually on the phone when the mom.
Yeah, let me see
called
if I
to check on
can skip to the points. Hold on.
Regarding their progress in their education and their grades. And Ms. Gaffney, if a student were scholarship, can those type of benefits be put at risk if there's issues with their academics?
Yeah. Yes.
Of
Although they
course.
have a period of time before it's reviewed.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that as
Yeah.
well. So let me ask you this. If a student is struggling with academics, what does Mount Union do to try to get a hold of this?
There are a series of
Support
a
girl.
variety of different kinds of
Cheers.
interventions. But if, as we're looking at it semester by semester, there's a committee that looks at it, that reviews all students at the end of every semester who are below a certain grade point average. And at that time, they may choose to put a student on academic warning, academic probation, academic
Pause it
suspension.
for 1 minute.
Or some.
Now, does she go start talking into the conversation about on the phone with the mom?
Yes.
Let's get into that. Let's get into the juicy stuff.
Ms. Gaffney, are there other, I'm trying to think of the right word, and I apologize if I'm saying things backwards. Are there programs available to students who are
Continue because their grade point is still below what is what you need to graduate.
Sydney's got to
They
be
have an
suffering.
opportunity to
I mean,
appeal
she's
the
suffering.
decision.
It's a young girl.
So they can, and there's a date, mayor's office more than likely, to understand the suspension and what. Yes,
Okay, what is that document?
this would be the letter indicating that Sydney was suspended.
Okay, so that's a suspension letter. That's the letter that's sent to students?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the first
And
letter.
then
She was
direct them
suspended
on
first, right?
Right.
if they want to
She
appeal
was
or address
notified.
what's going on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Gaffney, who is that
She's
letter
feeling so bad
specifically?
about herself, you know?
And she was still
This is
living
just
on
a-
campus. This was a
Yeah.
staff member
City
that
Hall.
was confronting
She was
her.
not leaving when they asked her to leave, correct?
Right.
The document came just briefly, okay?
Here, let me
Yes.
go.
Okay, can you point to what seat she's sitting in? Thank you.
She just didn't want to fail. She didn't want to fail.
Okay, Ms. Gaffney, how did you come aware of Ms. Powell?
I became aware of her when one of our staff members, who's the director of student involvement, had one of her student leaders, that was a sorority president, come to her and indicate that there was a student coming to sorority meetings who wasn't on our list of enrolled students for the semester. And the sororities have to turn in a roster each semester of who is there for collection of dues and all of the
Right.
organizational records that they have to keep, both for their university and their national chapter. And so they were questioning the fact that we had left off a student from the roster who was attending sorority meetings, and trying to clarify the mistake.
So she was still attending
And our director
Yeah,
of
she
student
was still
involvement knew
attending
that-
those
that
sorority
it was not a
meetings.
mistake. She
Sorority
should not
meetings and
be on the
everything. She was
roster.
acting like
She's
nothing
not
was happening.
Right.
You just couldn't
for the
accept it,
semester.
you know? And that right there, you know she has a problem.
All right, let me
And I
try
said,
to
well,
get
you
Did that
don't-
catch your attention?
It did, and I
It's like
had-
firing
I had
somebody, but
double-checked
you can't
before
get
I
them to leave their
called
desk.
to see if, because I thought maybe she had appealed and I hadn't been notified that an appeal had gone through. So I checked and there was no schedule for Sydney. And I also checked at that time to make sure that she had received, with the Academic Affairs Office, to make sure she had received the letter and signed for it, in the event that maybe she just, if she didn't get the letter, fact that the suspension, I said, Sydney,
Let's get through.
Pause it for a minute.
See grades
So-
specifically.
Yeah.
All right, so they're talking this whole thing up now. We're going to get to where she's going to
Get home.
have the mom, what she said to the mom. I wonder how that went. I wonder the mom called and got a hold of her right away. I mean,
I think there was like a little bit of phone tag. Hold on, I'm gonna get to that portion.
spending quite a bit of time in the hall, more than what, and she didn't want to bother them because of all the issues they were
I
having
never
with her little
imagined going
brother.
through something like this.
So,
Definitely by the next.
okay, and Ms. Powell then
All right,
then
so
left
she's finally
campus.
moved
Yes.
out.
Okay. Were you aware of where Ms.
campus.
Powell went or where she was going to be staying?
Home. She said
You
home.
figure they're going to go home.
She told you she'd be moving back home?
Yes.
Okay. Now, students, they're allowed to have friends over who aren't enrolled at Mount Union,
Yes.
correct? Okay, so if Sydney wanted to visit her old roommate or her friends or sorority sisters, she could do that freely. She just couldn't be living there on campus.
Yes.
She
I think he asked, "Is this Brenda Powell?"
Oh, okay.
And she said yes, and then he identified himself.
Okay. Here.
And Ms. Gaffney, what happened next?
Okay, here we go.
there was a very large or a very loud sort of thud sound, like a
Thug.
pounding or a thud,
Skillet.
accompanied by by a pretty loud scream.
Poor woman.
The scream might have actually been first, and then the thud.
Okay.
As I think about it, and then there was sort of an expulsion. The other sound that I heard at that same time, or right after, was sort of an expulsion of air.
Wow,
like the
look
air
at
was
this.
knocked
Look
out
at
of
her
somebody.
face.
I'd always heard that expression of the air being knocked, having the wind knocked out of you, but I didn't.
Pause this for a minute.
That's actually what it sounded like.
So right there, this woman at the university definitely heard the skillet hit her mom in the head. That's what that thug was.
Well, yeah.
And then she has to hear the breath come out of her because she knocked her mom out. I mean, you get hit in the back of the head with a skillet. How's that going to feel?
Not good. not
I
good
mean,
at all. I
geez.
mean, it's like a cartoon, right? It's like that's something that they do
No.
on a cartoon. It's not real life. Like
No, you would never think that, your
it's
daughter.
unbelievable.
Well, let's go and continue. Looking at her face just makes my stomach cringe because I couldn't imagine going through something like
She
that,
did
sitting
it.
as the dad.
That's
The
thing.
father's suffering, the
Like,
grandmother,
but
the
that's
son.
the thing. Like, she was there. Like, she caused the event.
She did. She's in all fault of this, 100%. And it's a
then
shame to see her covering her ears.
Several
Let
more
her hear it.
repeated thuds. I don't know how to describe the sound
And that's okay. And you and Mr. Frazier could hear this from the other end of the phone.
from the other. It was on speakerphone, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear any communication during these thuds?
Just the screaming.
Just the screaming.
And this.
Jeez.
And so we were both talking into the phone, saying, what's happening? Are you okay? Do you need help? What's going on?
Yeah, can you describe your mindset at this
You couldn't
time?
even imagine this right now.
I mean, it very definitely felt like someone was being attacked. And so we weren't getting an answer. I think at some point I said, if you can't respond, we're going to call the police. If we don't hear if no one can tell us what's going on. The dean's has an administrative assistant right outside his door. So I said, well, I'm going to get Sydney's address. And he kept talking. And so,
Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Frazier, yeah.
Mr. Frazier, yeah. So he heard it as well.
I opened the door and told our admin, I said, I need Sydney Powell's address right away. And in the meantime, I had my phone and I was looking up the number for the Akron Police Department.
No, yeah, why didn't, let me ask you this. Sorry, I interrupt you again. Why didn't you want to call 911?
Because I knew it would go to Stark County Dispatch. I work with our security and the Alliance Police quite a bit.
Okay.
And
She
we
did the
actually,
right
when
thing.
we need the police, we call the Alliance Police Dispatch and not 911 because it goes to Stark County and not Alliance.
Okay.
And they often don't. It
Good
takes
thinking.
longer.
So you wanted to get directly
I
in
wanted to get
contact
directly
with-
to, I knew she was from Akron. I wanted to get directly to the Akron Police, so.
And Ms. Gaffney, can you describe how that phone call
couldn't
continued
imagine that.
or what happened next?
So while Tara is our assistant, while Tara was looking up that address, the phone cut off at some point after. I would say that somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 or 7 of those thuddings, those sort of thud sounds.
6 or 7.
And the screaming had continued.
And when you say the phone cut off, did the call drop or
The
was
call
it hung?
dropped. Yeah,
Okay.
we lost the call.
Okay.
And so we decided to keep, while we were waiting for the address, to keep calling. We called the number back,
Brenda's number?
Brenda's number. That she
Brenda's
left,
number.
And we called twice, and there was no answer. It rang and rang and rang and no answer.
Pause that for a
And
minute.
when it went to voicemail, we hung up and we called again.
So the last thing she heard, the phone just went dead.
Right.
And just imagine what she's going through. She's doing the right thing. She called the right police department. She
Yeah.
couldn't believe what's going on the other line.
That's why they got there
This
so
year-
quickly. They got there during the
Kids
time.
get kicked out of school every day in college. They don't go home. They go home shamed, don't get me wrong, but they're not going to go home and kill their mom. This woman's probably saying, what's going on over here?
Oh, yeah.
Then she's hearing the screaming and the stabbing, the yelling. And then let's continue to see what else goes on here.
And then on the third time, and I had just gotten the address as the phone was answered.
Okay.
On the third try to the number, and Dean Frazier said something along the lines of, "Brenda, is that you? Are you there?" And the voice on the other end said, "Yes, this is Brenda." Yes, this is Brenda.
Now, Ms. Gaffney,
Oh,
did
she
you
was
recognize
pretending
that
she was
voice
her
on the
mom.
line?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Was that Brenda
it
Powell?
was not Brenda.
Who
Not
did you
Brenda.
recognize that voice to be?
I was sure it was Sydney. Both Dean Frazier and I looked at each other and
It wasn't Sydney. It was the
and
devil.
sort of shook our heads at each other and said, that's not Brenda." And he then said, I don't, Sydney, I think this is you. This is not Brenda."
And what happened next?
The phone went dead.
Okay.
Wow.
And Ms. Gaffney, what did you do next?
We called the Akron police. By that point, I had the phone number up and the address, and so we called the Akron police and indicated we felt there was some sort of situation at this house. And
And
they
then
needed
going back
send
to the
someone
police
away.
arriving on the scene.
Yeah.
Did you have any other involvement with the Akron police or the Powell family after that?
Here, I'm gonna
This
see
is
if I
gonna be
can
something, I'll tell
play
you.
the body cam audio. Let me know if you can hear.
Sure. I could barely hear it. Yeah, I can't hear it.
No?
No.
Okay.
But going back to the dean, so the dean's listening to this, and just imagine what's going through their heads. And then on the other line, they have this. She's trying to pretend she's her mom. She's already starting to plan what she has to do now to try to save herself.
Yeah.
Which we go out, break the windows, and say that somebody's breaking into the home. Cops arrive, and then wham, all this happens.
Yeah.
So I don't
she
even
knew
see
to
the
go
tears in her eyes
outside.
right now, because what this is I don't see tears. All right, let's finish this clip.
Let's finish this.
Police called back maybe a couple hours later and
Oh, the police called her back.
told us that, just to
What?
say that they had gone to the house and that they were, I believe what we were told was that they were transporting two women to the, I don't know which hospital they said, but one of the Akron hospitals. There were two women being transported to the Akron hospital and, thanked us for having called. But we asked who
Things
was
can
going to the
change in a
hospital.
flash.
Oh, yeah.
And they couldn't tell us.
Okay. So you never told by the Akron Police Department what had occurred or what was going on?
Not at that point. We actually, we learned about it on the news.
Okay. And then
The
later
rest of the details.
you
Yeah.
had an opportunity to meet or have a conversation with a detective with the Akron Police Department?
A couple days later,
Okay. And you shared the same information with him?
yes.
Okay.
Yep, she did a good job.
Yeah.
It's just a shame she had to go through that herself, something she'll never forget. Now she has to sit in this courtroom. She has to look at the girl that she's known for a long time, Sydney, and not even realize she put this complete lie together, staying at the college, staying at the fraternity house, not leaving.
Well, she wasn't
And-
staying at the sorority house. She was staying in the dorm.
The dorm, that's what I meant, the dorm. And then here on the grandmother, I see up on the top left, the court, this poor woman. I feel so look at her face.
Let's talk about.
She now lost her granddaughter.
Brenda
She lost her
for a
daughter.
second.
The whole family is out.
Right.
What kind of person was Brenda?
This is a shame.
Brenda was the sweetest
Didn't it?
I
child,
can imagine this.
always respectful. The
And
story
that's the
I
other thing. I
always
don't believe
said
that. Sure, she had
about
some
them when they
types
were
of rages
kids
because they
was
had
the
to
only
go and have her
time
put on medication.
that-
Oh, yeah.
They had her put on medication.
Well,
They
after
said
the
that.
fact. She got put on medication after.
Oh, not when she was in high school?
No, it's after this
Okay.
incident took place. That's when medicine came into play.
A little too late then, I guess. But look at the face on her. She lost it all.
Right.
Now she has to make the choice of, you just took my daughter from me, and now I have to support you and be okay for you. This poor woman.
Right.
Never be the same again.
No, that family.
But here we are, 7:34. We got Johnny Gunn's investigation. bringing you as much as we can in footage, and we have News Lounge with Becky, and we're going to bring as much coverage as we can every day. All right, let's go back to Betsy.
Your grandmother?
Yeah.
Okay.
she was ever the one in trouble was if she got between me and my son when I was trying to get to him.
So she's just doing a
She
character
just
witness
was always a
statement.
good child. Very gentle, very loving.
So I'm going to switch to just a closing
just to-
argument. Just listen to a little bit of this.
To reflect
Okey-doke.
on your patience as a jury. This case has lasted almost 3 weeks. There's been decisions made by both counsel in order to organize the best we can in order to present this case, and we do recognize that took a toll on your time, your ability to go about your daily life, and that doesn't go unnoticed. So we do appreciate your patience as both parties have worked diligently to present this case. And almost 3 weeks ago, we first entered this on March 3rd of 2020. So I know I thank you for your patience, but I'm going to ask you to be patient a little bit longer because I want to work through some things. And I want to talk about the law that you're going to be presented with. I want to talk about the state's evidence and what we believe it shows. And I also want to talk about what defense has presented because, as we mentioned before, this is a unique case where part of that burden shifts to them. And we're going to address that. And I first want to talk about, as I mentioned, the law. And I know.
So they're just
Let's.
going to close that up. Well, let's go ahead and just get wrapped up because I was figuring tomorrow they have a new case starting on Court TV.
Oh yeah, and what is
Yeah,
that?
that is the one of I believe it's called Taking Care of Maya. It's
Oh,
happening
yeah.
here in Florida, where there's
The
a
local
case
one.
about she was medically kidnapped. So that trial is actually going to start, and we can go
Do you
ahead.
know what area of Florida that was in?
It was like in the Gulf area, the
Gotcha.
Tampa Bay, Sarasota, that area. I can't remember exactly where they live. I think they are in that Sarasota area, but it is like the Tampa Bay area, I believe, because she went
Okay,
to all
good.
children's.
Right. So we'll definitely cover that. So we just want to thank everybody. We came on live tonight, just starting out, getting everything together. We'll be back live again Friday, 7:00. And we're going to bring you some new footage on a new case. And then on the 28th, when Sydney Powell gets her sentences, we'll be back live for that. Everybody have a good night.
Good night, everyone.